Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we have my last book haul of 2023, and just like my last book haul, I've kind of grouped all of the books into similar pairs. So we're gonna start with this first group. These are all translated books. An elderly lady's up to no good and an elderly lady must not be crossed. These are Swedish thrillers about this elderly woman named Maud who just wants to be left alone. She's 80 years old, she's tired, she's over everything, she's over everyone, and when people don't leave her alone, it makes her murderous. Then we have My Husband by Maud Ventura. I just read this one in my Choose Your Own Adventure vlog and I really enjoyed it. This is a French thriller about this woman who is just extremely obsessed with her husband. Then I have Perfume by Patrick Suskind. This is a German classic set in the 18th century about a serial killer, and I am very excited to read this one. Okay, the next four books that I have are all Darcy Coates books. Firstly, I have Dead of Winter. This is my book club book this month. This one is like a snowed in, locked room thriller. There's a group of people who are going on a tour group in the Rocky Mountains and it snows and they all get trapped in this cabin, and then they wake up and one of the people in the tour group is brutally murdered and they realize that somebody among them is a killer and is picking them off one by one. It sounds so fun. Then I have three books in the Black Winter series, book 1, book 2, and book 4. I still need the third book, but I've read book 1 and I really loved it. This is a post-apocalyptic horror romance. I thought this book was so much fun and I'm very excited to continue the series. I was actually very surprised when I got them because book 2 is so much bigger than the other ones. I think it's like 100 pages longer than the others, which I was very surprised about. But I just had so much fun with this first book that I can't wait to read the rest of the series. Then I have two special editions from Illumicrate and Evernight, which is Illumicrate's horror box. So the Evernight one is Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling. This is their quarterly horror box, and I've gotten it twice now. This is a horror book that I believe is about clones, and it just sounds really, really fun. I have loved the two other Caitlin Starling books that I've read, so I'm excited to read this. And this cover is just so trippy. Everything about it, it like unsettles me in a way that I love. And then the Illumicrate book is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, and I love this cover because it is a clear dust jacket. So the front looks like that and then you take it off and you have the house underneath, and I just think it's so pretty. I think this is probably my favorite Illumicrate edition that I've gotten so far. Then I have two books in the same series. That is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet and A Close and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. This is a sci-fi space opera series. I read the first book and I loved it. I actually just recently reread it and I want to continue with the series, so I wanted to get this edition so that I could buy the rest of the series matching, because I have the UK edition of this book, but I don't know, I like these covers better. I feel like they give the vibes of the series more. But A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet is a space opera following a crew of different species. There's different alien races and humans and AI, a whole different like found family of people who are all traveling together. I just love the characters in this book so much. It's definitely one of my favorite sci-fi books. Then I got a bunch of these Wadsworth Lux editions of classic books. I think these are stunning and I'm so excited to have them in my collection. They're all just so beautiful. So I have Pride and Prejudice, which I've read and I love. This is one of my favorite books. Then I have Jane Eyre, Little Women, and then Anne of Green Gables. I think this one might be my favorite. I just love the green and the rose gold, but these just all look so good together. They're stunning and they all have like monochromatic sprayed edges. I am doing a challenge next year to read a bunch of classics, so I've been slowly collecting a bunch so that I can read them next year. The next two are both gothic books. A Long Time Dead by Samara Breger. This is a gothic sapphic vampire romance that just sounds amazing. It's set in the 1800s. There's vampires, shifty pirates, conniving opera singers, ancient nobles, glamorous French women, and a found family that throws a very particular sort of party. I don't know, like this just sounds like my kind of book. And then I have The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. This is another classic, and this one is a bunch of short stories of like dark fairy tales. So you have Red Riding Hood, Bluebeard, Puss in Boots, Beauty and the Beast, and I've just heard amazing things about this. I actually saw recently that this was a major major inspiration for S.T. Gibson when she was writing A Dowry of Blood. So I can't wait to read both of these. Then I have 2 YA books. The first one is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I have already read this one and I gave it 3 stars. This is a Death and the Maiden retelling about a girl who is the only person that death cannot touch. And I thought it was enjoyable. I liked it. It wasn't super memorable to me. But then I also got Iron Widow by Sharon J. Zhao. And this one is like a sci-fi dystopian. I've heard that it's like Pacific Rim vibes where people have to get into these big like mechanical suits in order to fight aliens. It just sounds so fun. I've been recommended this endlessly. I believe it also has a polyamorous relationship in it, so I'm just very, very excited to read this. I have been sort of putting it off for a long time because the sequel wasn't coming out for a while. I believe this one came out in like 2020 and the sequel's coming out next year, so I was waiting until it was closer to the sequel. But now that that's coming out next year, I'm definitely going to pick this up soon. Then I have 2 T. Kingfisher books because would this be one of my book hauls if I did not have a T. Kingfisher book in it? No. So we have Thornhedge. This one I have read twice this year and I really love it. It is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but in T. Kingfisher's classic style where she kind of takes fairy tales and twists them on their head. And then I have this gorgeous special edition from Fox and Wit of Paladin's Grace. This cover is just absolutely stunning. I love it so much. So this is set in the same world as Sword Heart and I'm so excited to read it. It's a fantasy romance. It just looks amazing. I've also heard that one of my favorite characters from Sword Heart is also in this book and I'm super excited for that. Then I have 2 romance books that honestly have nothing to do with each other than the fact that they're the only romance books in this stack. So I have You Again by Kate Goldbeck. This is a romance book that is inspired by When Harry Meets Sally. I think it's also queer. I believe one of the characters in this is queer or bi or pan or something, and it just sounds really great. So many people that I know have been loving this and giving it 5 stars. And then I have Bloody Heart by Sophie Lark. This is the 4th book in her Brutal Birthright series, and this is actually one of my favorite books in the series. I loved this one. This one is kind of like a second chance romance, which I'm not usually a big fan of second chance, but I just really love this book. I loved Dante, the hero. Then I have 2 cozy fantasy books. The first one is Howl's Moving Castle. This I've already read. I love Howl's Moving Castle, both the book and the movie, and they recently published it with this new cover that I think is so beautiful because one of the tragic things about Howl's Moving Castle is that up until now, there was no cute covers of this book, but this one is just so cute, so whimsical. I feel like it fits the vibes of the book perfectly, and I really, really want to reread it now. Then I have A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by Jay Penner. This is like Lord of the Rings meets Great British Bake Off, and it sounds so perfect for me. When I heard that description, I immediately bought the book. So it's about this human woman who enters a baking competition, but everyone else in the competition are elves and dwarves and wizards, and they all have magic, and she's the only one without magic. And it just sounds like a perfect cozy fantasy. Because you guys know I love Great British Bake Off. Then I have 2 sequels. So the first one is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the sequel to One Dark Window, which I read earlier in the year and I really, really loved it. So I can't wait to read the sequel. It is a duology, so this is the final book. And this is set in a world where magic is a plague. The main character has like an ancient evil entity living in her head called the Nightmare, who whispers dark things to her. It was such a great book. I loved the magic and the world building and the romance, so I'm very excited to read the conclusion. Then I have Earth's End, which is the 3rd book in the Air Awakens series. I have not started this series yet, but I'm planning to hopefully binge it soon if I enjoy it. So when I found the 3rd book at Half Price Books for only $7, I was like, don't mind if I do. This is set in a world that has a lot of like elemental magic, which is one of my favorite types of like magic systems. Then I have these 4 books, which were all books that I bought because I loved the cover. And then when I looked further, they sounded very interesting to me, but they were mostly cover buys. The first one I have is Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh. This cover, I love covers like this. I'm drawn to covers like this. And this one, I think, is an epistolary novel set in a town gripped by hysteria. They're being poisoned by the food, potentially, and everybody's going crazy. I don't know, it sounds like it's gonna be my kind of book, like that very like weird literary vibe, and I love an epistolary book. Then I have God Killer by Hannah Canner. This is a fantasy book where gods are forbidden in this kingdom, and the king now has mercenaries called God Killers whose only goal is to go and kill the gods. And the main character, her family was killed by gods, so now she has become a god killer because she hates them. But then she's tasked to protect this young noble girl who has a god attached to her soul. So the child's soul is bonded to a tiny god of white lies, and she can't kill it without ending the girl's life too. And then she's joined by a disillusioned knight on a secret quest. They're pursued by assassins and demons. Like, that just sounds amazing. I really have high hopes for this one, and the cover is stunning. This is probably one of my favorite covers ever. Then I have Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed, and this one has always captured my attention. One, because I love the artwork on the cover, but also this is like a horror fantasy. It says it is perfect for fans of Shirley Jackson and Catherine M. Valente, about a young witch who seeks to discover her identity and escape the domination of her ruthless wizard father. I've also seen that this might involve cannibals, which is one of my buzzwords. Never have I ever read a book with cannibals that I didn't love. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. That's a lie. That was a bold-faced lie because I gave Tender as the Flesh 1 star. I just deleted that from my brain. So a lot of my favorite books have cannibals in them. That is a fact. Then I have The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry by C.M. Wagner. This is a sapphic fantasy about this woman who is tasked with being like the bodyguard of these elite noble women, and then she has a romance with one of those women. But the line in the synopsis that really sold me was, it says, with the help of a bird-loving necromancer, a shape-shifting schoolgirl, and an ill-tempered reanimated mouse named Buttons. A reanimated mouse named Buttons? I will be reading that immediately. And then lastly, I have 3 fantasy books. These are really just the leftovers. They don't really have anything in common other than their fantasy. First up, I have Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan. This is, I believe, like the prequel series to Theft of Swords. It takes place, I think, a couple centuries before that, but I really am enjoying the Rhaeria revelations. I don't know, I like Michael J. Sullivan's writing and his world, and this one sounds like it's gonna be even more up my alley. The only thing I don't like about Theft of Swords is that I wish it was more magic heavy, and from what I know of the world, there used to be a lot more magic. So I think this one is gonna have more magic. We have This Gilded Abyss by Rebecca Thorne. This is a sapphic fantasy about exes. These 2 women here, they are exes. One of them is a princess, the other one is a bodyguard who gets hired to be the bodyguard to her princess ex-girlfriend. And that just sounds perfect. That sounds amazing. That is all I want in life. And then lastly, I have The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. This is a fantasy book that I've been seeing so much hype for lately, and a lot of the things that people are saying about it is really piquing my interest and reminding me of the way that people talked about The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I think it's a fantasy book that leans more literary, and it's like a story within a story about 2 warriors who are going on a journey with an ancient god across a broken land to end a tyrannical reign of a royal family. Everything that people have been saying about this is really reminding me of The Fifth Season, and that's my all-time favorite fantasy book. So I'm very excited for this one. So those are all of the books in this book haul, the last book haul of 2023. Comment down below what is the book from this haul that sounded the most interesting to you. If there's something I should prioritize reading because you want to hear my thoughts on it. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe and check out my Patreon where I post tons of exclusive content. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!